Ethiopia heads to the polls on June 1st, and Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's re-election appears almost certain. But not all voters will be able to cast their ballot. We'll tell you why and how that's likely to affect the country. More than 50.5 million Ethiopians have registered to vote, according to the country's election authority. The ruling Prosperity Party, formed and led by Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed in 2019, is seeking another 5 years in office. Its vision of merging ethnically defined territorial states into a unified Ethiopia is being tested. And in one of the few rallies it held ahead of the Monday vote, the party chose to focus on the economy.
The Prosperity Party manifesto focuses on building a quality, competitive, multi-sectoral and strong economy, ensuring social justice through equitable wealth distribution, building a civilized city, and establishing technology-backed, efficient service delivery and good governance at all levels, thereby enabling our people to be completely and permanently freed from hardship.
More than 45 opposition parties are contesting this year's election, but analysts say they are either fragmented, excluded, or have limited reach. But one of the parties in the race believes it can challenge the ruling party's political dominance nationally.
All existing parties in Ethiopia are based on ethnicity and language, whereas we were established not on the basis of ethnicity or language, but on citizenship. We are a force working toward the belief that by grounding ourselves in citizenship, we can bring social justice to the people. Furthermore, we envision achieving this social justice through the application of democratic federalism.
As of mid-2025, the UN estimated that over 3 million people were internally displaced due to conflict between the federal army and regional forces. And even though Abiy's government is credited with floating the country's bear currency, allowing foreign investment in banking and telecom industries, and backing plans for major infrastructure projects, the currency has devalued, spiking rising inflation and living costs. Regional tensions with Eritrea have resurfaced over Red Sea access, while a stalemate continues with Egypt and Sudan over the country's Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam on the Nile. The Sudanese army has also accused Addis Ababa of supporting its rival in the Sudanese conflict. Let's hear more from Professor Peter Kagwanja, CEO of the Africa Policy Institute, who joins me here in Nairobi. Thank you so much for making time for this interview. I'll just dive into the first question, and that has to be the election, the scheduled election, face any legitimacy test, and what does that look like for the country?
First and foremost, this election is taking place against the background of what you can call a victor's order. Ethiopia is coming from a long, prolonged civil war that was mediated, by a number of countries, and the Tigrayans in the north basically agreed to cease the war with the national government or federal government of Abiy Ahmed. But you know that that's the victor's order, and the victor's order, which has enabled Abiy to assert himself more profoundly, has not meant that there has been any major transformation or resolutions of the issues that fundamentally pushed Ethiopia into a second civil war. Now, that is not only part. The Tigray part of Ethiopia is not the only part that has been in conflict. We've seen conflict in the Amhara region between the government and the local militias. We have seen conflict in the southern part of the country involving a number of communities, and even the Oromo community has continued to have an insurgency challenging the national government. So therefore, from a security perspective, it is unimaginable that a kind of a free and fair election can occur. Second, of course, the institutions of election have not been in place. which would be either judged as capable or incapable of conducting an election. And therefore, election in Ethiopia, election in Sudan, election in South Sudan, and to an extent even election in Somalia, in the democratic sense of the term, where we have universal suffrage, is basically a facade. You not expect any election to happen, but as it were, we must acknowledge every effort being made. For example, we must acknowledge that it's in good spirit that the government of Ethiopia would want to conduct the election. We must also acknowledge that there's a movement in terms of accommodation of the idea of democracy, because in 2020 that could not be, that was not an issue that was welcome. Now it is something that has been considered, and in the 1st of June they will have an election. So we'll observe, but we say there is a lot that need to be done to create an enabling environment for an election that can be judged either as in line with tenets of democracy, or out of that. The playing field is not there. The ground is not there.
We are looking at Abiy's, Ahmed's tenure and legacy. What is his legacy this far?
Well, Abiy's main legacy was supposed to be democracy. He came in with a lot of expectation, around his identity as a young person, a very experienced soldier, a very experienced technocrat, a very experienced academic, a very experienced man of intelligence in terms of his training. So he had much of what it takes to be a great leader, because in terms of the skilling, he has been top of the range. He's among the very few African leaders who have PhDs, or who have worked from the trenches of war to acquire a PhD. So you cannot fault Abiy as a person in terms of what he is. But possibly the environment in which he works may not be, very amenable to the whole idea about democracy. So initially, because of that euphoria around his, expectation to be a democratic reformer, he was given a Nobel Peace Prize, but which has put Norway and other countries that were behind the Nobel Peace Prize award at completely at unease. Unease because less than 1 year after he was awarded, he was embroiled in a local, inter-ethnic conflict, which cost thousands of lives or hundreds of thousands of lives, worst humanitarian crisis in the region, and therefore what would have been Abiy's main legacy, which is democratization of Ethiopia, never took off. Instead, what emerged was that it was not democracy per se, the pursuit of democracy per se, or a pursuit of regional peace per se, with Eritrea, which prevailed. Instead, what we saw was a kind of what you can call a military alliance with Eritrea in order to contain the dissenting voices within Ethiopia, particularly the Tigrayans. So the question therefore becomes that did Abiy contribute to regional peace? I think he never did at that level. Temporarily there was again a lot of hope that the truce between Ethiopia and Eritrea, which had gone to war in 1998, and where they lived in what we call a state of no war and no peace, did not translate into sustainable peace. Now today, because of Ethiopia's desire, and I must say a legitimate desire, to have a coastline or to have access to the Red Sea, specifically through its own territory, rather than the international agreement, like with Eritrea, with Djibouti, where they transport most of their imports and exports through the port of Djibouti or various ports in Somalia or even our port in Lamu in Kenya, they would want to have their own port. But that quest has caused jitters in Somalia, in Djibouti, and in Eritrea, which are the neighbors. And therefore, we can say that the situation is now worse than it was before the truce, because the two countries, particularly Eritrea and Ethiopia, can go to war anytime. If this situation escalates, it has not escalated. But I speak to the diplomats from time to time, and it tells you that this is a ticking time bomb that needs to be addressed. And I don't know how, because all the landlocked countries would like to have direct access to the sea. That is a legitimate quest, but how it is done becomes a big issue. Obviously, one of the most enduring legacy of Abiy will be his contribution to the economy of Ethiopia. Apart from the war that really decimated that economy, he has progressively contributed to the economy of Ethiopia. The finishing of the dam, that started being constructed during the time of Meles, is a huge achievement on his part, because he could have as well lineaged or basically backtracked on the completion of the dam. He has completed the dam, aggressively supported the sovereignty of Ethiopia, against this suggestion that he should not do it because it would be in violation of the Nile and so on. And therefore, Ethiopia today is almost energy sufficient. What that has meant is that a number of investments are going to Ethiopia, despite being landlocked, because of affordable energy in the country. So that is a credit to him.
Thank you. Mine is to thank you very much, Prof, for making time for this interview.
Thank you.
Still to come here on Africa Matters.
I'm Isaac Kanlechi here in Accra to tell you how young Ghanaian developers are harnessing artificial intelligence to tackle real-world societal challenges.
To Ghana now, which has begun rolling out its newly launched National Artificial Intelligence Strategy. It's investing over $250 million in sectors such as health, agriculture, education, and feed tech. Isaac Kaledzi caught up with some developers in the capital, Accra, who are already seizing the opportunity.
This drone is taken to the skies with a clear mission. Osman Tanko and his colleague from Kara Agro AI are using the AI-supported drone to deliver faster results and on a larger scale.
The whole idea is to basically use drone technology to fly over the canopy of cashew trees and over cashew farms and then take images of the canopy. So when we do that, we are able to identify certain things that are wrong with the plants and then pass that into our AI system, and the AI system can give us meaningful insights and to the farmers.
The images captured from the farm are analyzed by a software known as Kadi AI.
And then we give that reports to the farmers. So the farmers get information about which parts of their crops are either infected by insects or they are lacking nutrients or they are diseased. And the farmers can pinpoint exactly where that particular crop is, and then they can take action.
In another instance of AI speeding things up, Dr. Isaac Baini is also using AI tools to help process patient information and support diagnosis by analyzing medical details.
But of course, things like examination, having conversation with the patient and all that is still done by human beings. But when it comes to data processing, how fast the data will be processed for you, the human being, to use to make the decision process, I think AI is good.
Artificial intelligence is often viewed with caution, even as a potential threat. But Ghana is looking to change that narrative with its national AI strategy. The country aims to position itself as a leading AI-powered African nation over the next decade. Darlington Akogo is a pioneering AI developer and co-lead of the government's team behind that strategy.
Essentially, by 2030, we want AI to add up to $20 billion to to Ghana's GDP, right? So there's a monetary aspect. Then if you take each sector, we want AI to transform healthcare, agriculture, transportation. There are 8 pillars in a strategy that look at different things.
Osman and his colleagues believe their work is already making an impact through AI technology, with hopes that their innovations will expand across multiple sectors in the coming years. Isaac Kaleji, Africa Matters, Accra.
To Sudan now, where farmers are raising concerns over food production this summer. Many say rising global fuel and fertilizer prices triggered by the US-Israeli war on Iran could force them to scale back. That would further reduce food output in a country already facing severe hunger due to its own war. Matilda Matuatlaga reports.
An already worsening hunger crisis in Sudan could deepen further. Farmers warn this may affect staples like sorghum and millet, as well as export crops such as sesame.
Petroleum products and fertilizers all pass through the Strait of Hormuz, and the war has led to a significant rise in prices and also affected fertilizer availability in Sudan at the right time. The Agricultural Bank has taken these challenges into account, will work to ease the burden on Sudanese farmers by providing these inputs, including fertilizers, on better terms and with longer repayment periods.
Not having access to fertilizers could also create a knock-on effect, according to experts.
Availability might not be the problem. However, the price and accessibility to these fertilizers will be a problem. If farmers try to reduce either the cultivated areas or the amount of fertilizers, or not use fertilizers to a great extent, that might immediately have an impact of not less than 40% decrease overall of the production.
After more than 3 years of war in the country, the Sudanese army controls the central and eastern regions, while the Rapid Support Forces control most of Darfur in the west. Both sides remain in conflict over the strategic Kordofan region, which is also important for agriculture. Meanwhile, farmers say the army-aligned government, constrained by wartime spending, has offered little support.
Previously, we used to irrigate our crops from this canal. We would connect a pipe, but now we use a diesel pump every 5 days. Each cycle needs about 4 gallons of fuel, which costs around $266. At that price, we don't make any profit.
As the rising cost of production threatens to further choke food production, and with millions already facing the most severe hunger crisis in the world, any drop in output could put even more lives at risk. Matilda Mutoatlaga, Africa Matters.
In the bustling tech hubs of Lagos, Nigerian filmmakers are turning to artificial intelligence to revive long cultural history and protect ancient heritage from fading away. As undocumented oral tradition risks being forgotten, digital tools are changing how African stories are being told. Hope Kirubi tells us more.
Millions of stories shape Nigeria's history, but huge chapters remain missing from modern textbooks. Malik Afekbua, a filmmaker, wants to change that. He uses artificial intelligence to reconstruct historical sites digitally.
I go and learn about their cultures, I go and see their artifacts and see everything, their pros, their cons, their biases. Then I can also tell a story about the Ishakiris, even if I'm not from there. But if I try to use an AI to tell that story, that's the biggest problem, and that's the misconception. You can't let the AI do the work. You have to do the work as a human being, and the AI would enhance that work that you're doing.
AI is also revolutionizing Nollywood. By lowering visual effects costs, it allows local creators to build large sets without spending a fortune.
For the first time in history in Nollywood, we can create set extensions, create VFX, create things that we couldn't do before because they were really expensive.
Despite the potential job losses, traditional film directors view this new technology as an evolution of filming rather than a threat.
If you wanted to capture your portrait, the portraits of kings, it was a painter that had to sit down for like 4 or 5 hours painting. Then the camera came. But the people still do portraits. The artists are still relevant. You get my point? So the same thing with when the motion camera came, the still camera is still relevant. Do you get my point? So I feel like what I've always said is AI is a tool. AI is something that helps us supercharge our creative process.
As AI tools become more widely available, Nollywood filmmakers are rapidly integrating the technology into post-production and visual effects. While the tools are changing, the mission to protect the country's heritage and project its culture to the world remains the same. Hope Kirubi, Africa Matters.
Rwanda has closed its borders with the Democratic Republic of the Congo because of the deadly Ebola outbreak. The move is disrupting trade in eastern DRC, leaving local markets in Bukavu city empty. Kyle Hafaji reports.
Bukavu city's main supply lines have been cut off. Food prices have skyrocketed, triggering a major economic crisis.
Since the closure of the borders, trade has ground to a halt. Before, we were selling for 65 US cents. Today, we're selling at over $1. All this because of the border closures, so there's been a rise in the price of goods.
With supplies running dry, storage facilities that were once packed with goods now sit empty, forcing sellers to abandon their stores.
There used to be lots of goods here, right up to the ceiling. Everyone's stock used to reach right up to the ceiling. But look, the warehouse is now empty because the border is closed. Nothing is coming in.
It is not just food that is becoming scarce. Banks in Bukavu have also remained closed since February last year, after the city was captured by M23 rebels. So residents can't access the US dollars needed for trade, leaving many financially stranded.
We depend on Rwanda. Previously, to get dollars, we had to cross into Rwanda. But now that the banks are closed, we're all in a bind and can't figure out how to manage our finances. I was supposed to go to Kenya next week, but unfortunately the borders are closed. We don't know what to do, so we are suffering much more because of this disease.
As medical teams work to track and stop the spread of the rare Ebola virus across borders, for local traders, this crisis is no longer just about health. It is a desperate battle to keep their livelihoods alive. Carl Hafaji, Africa Matters.
We change routes to focus on the US and EU-funded Lobito corridor that runs from a port on the Atlantic coast in Angola to the mineral-rich DRC, with plans to expand to Zambia. It's largely seen as a counter-Chinese measure. So how does Africa benefit? Zama Luthuli finds out.
It was sold as the West's answer to China's grip on African minerals. A railway, a port, and an ambition stretching more than 1,300 kilometers linking Angola's Atlantic coast to the Democratic Republic of the Congo, with plans to extend it to Zambia. Backed by the United States and European Union, the Lobito corridor aims to be a gateway to the global market. It's anchored in the Benguela Railway, which is largely reconstructed and modernized by China. The company running the project says it operated 5,000 trains across Angola last year alone.
Having a train, moving these goods is 10 times more environmental friendly than moving these thousands of trucks. So this combined advantage really provide not only a financial and commercial plus for our client, but also make them fulfill their social responsibility and environmental.
So far, the EU and the US have pumped over $6 billion into the project. They say the Lobito corridor has reduced transit time to the port from a month to about a week. It's being used to transport critical minerals needed for green energy from the DRC, like some of the 3.5 million metric tons of copper the country produced last year, according to provisional official data. At 11% of the world's output, it's the second largest producer in the world.
If the Lobito corridor is just, a pure extraction pipeline, it will fail the local population. But the architecture of this project is explicitly designed to be different, at least in design, shifting from a transit corridor to an economic development corridor.
The Lobito corridor remains a work in progress. It also faces competition from the Chinese-built Tazara Railway that connects Zambia to Dar es Salaam. Arguably, its real measure of success will be how much prosperity it delivers to the people along its path. Zamalutuli, Africa Matters.
That's our show this week. Let us know what you think about the Ethiopian election or any other stories you've seen on this episode. You can leave your comments on our Africa Matters YouTube page or on X. Thanks for watching, and it's goodbye from me and Mashaya.